Hello, everybody, and welcome to this month's conversation. I am Beena Kanke, Director of Grants and Partnerships at Together Women Rise. And today I have the absolute joy and privilege to talk once again with Gertrude from Yamba Malawi. So I have with me Gertrude Kabwazi, who is the Executive Director of Yamba Malawi. Some of you will remember that I had spoken to her in 2018 when she was the Executive Director of Age Africa. Welcome, Gertrude. So happy to have you here. Let's start with you and your story.
Thank you very much, Vina, and thank you very much to all of you who is watching us. My work with Yamba Malawi, is connects to my interests as a development practitioner, having worked in different organizations, but doing different kind of work. But at the center of all the pieces of work that I have done has been women and girls. If I've worked in water and sanitation programs, my work has been around women and girls. If it's to do with nutrition, has been around women and girls. And Yamba Malawi, focusing on children, my interest is also again on women and girls, because women and children connect by the hip. If you talk about child poverty, we can't divorce it from women poverty. So that has been my very, very big interest in the work that Yamba Malawi is doing currently.
Absolutely. So give us some cultural context to the communities that Yamba Malawi works with. Malawi is a tiny country. Who are the people that you're working with? Who are these women and girls and children that Yamba Malawi focuses on?
Thank you. To your point, Malawi is a tiny country, but with the highest number of the population living in rural communities. And we talk about rural communities, we're talking about communities that are challenged in many ways. They're challenged in terms of like access to public services. Many people walk long distances to access, for instance, healthcare services. Others walk long distances to access opportunities like schools. And so many other things that are there, like do not necessarily have them readily available. So these are the communities that Yamba Malawi is working in. We have households that we're working in that are ultra-poor. We talk about ultra-poor households where you have someone living in a dilapidated house, thatched with grass, and it's almost falling, and it's the floor is mud, and when it rains, it leaks like throughout the rainy season. And it's in cold season, it's also very cold. So those are the kinds of situations that we're working in. And the children do not have adequate clothing, even when it's cold. They have nothing to really, cover themselves, especially children from 0 to 5. They usually have, they're not cared for. You'd have, when you go into the communities, you see them without clothes at all, because their parents are concentrating more on providing clothes to older children. And these are communities where education levels are also low, because as I said, access to education opportunities are very low. But also social cultural issues, they also play a big part, because these are things that interact negatively in some ways. Not all cultural practices are bad, but there are some cultural beliefs and values that also kind of interfere with development of the communities. And out of these ultra-poor households, many of them who are affected are women, because they're the center of gravity when it comes to care for children in the home. So they are the ones who are carrying the burden, the heaviest burden on care and provision when it comes to the needs of the children in a home. So yeah, I would say that's where that's our target really. We want to make sure that the children in those homes and the women who are like caring for those children are indeed are equipped, but not only equipped, but also have the necessary, not competencies, but the knowledge and skills on childcare, but also capacity on provisions, like how do they provide for the children's needs.
Mm-hmm. So in the project that Together Women Rise is funding, I know you are focusing sometimes on these teenage moms, on the very, very young mothers. Tell us a little bit more on who makes up a family? Like, are there multi-generations living together? What kind of jobs do the men do? I mean, give us a kind of explain a family to us.
In Malawi, we have the common type of family is the extended family type. You have a lot of people that are living like a clan, but are also working dependently on each other. Mostly a house or a family is made up of husband and wife and children, but they would have extended family members alongside along the way. But however, that is socially the pattern, but economically it will be just between the husband and wife. So that's how it is in terms of like who makes up the family, because the family can also be defined along lines, economic can also be defined along lines, social issues. So that's why I'm emphasizing to say socially it's extended, but when it comes to economic, things or financial issues, it's narrowed down to husband and wife.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so as such, you find that the issues of poverty, for instance, in as much as we have extended families, yes, there is support, but again, if you talk about ultra poor households living in the same space, like a lot of them living in the same space, even that support cannot be provided. The economic or financial support cannot be extended because I can only share what I have, but what I don't have, I can't share. So it's just the social support that they receive, but the economic support, the families have to do that on their own. Mostly girls are married off early in Malawi, as early as 12-year-olds. They will be married off for different reasons, but most commonly, it's just a tradition that has been there from our grandparents, our great-grandparents. They always believe when you come to a certain age, you are ready to go and start your own family. But also, I would say there are other reasons like economic issues, because most of the women in Malawi or most of the households, they are not educated and they don't understand issues of family planning. So they will have a lot of children, maybe 10 children in a household. Maybe they'll start giving birth at a very tender age. So they'll have a lot of children. So the mother, because she's the one who is carrying the burden of care, she's the one who is providing for the 10 children. She feels overwhelmed to still continue to provide for the children. So mostly it's the women who are like trying to do mathematics to make sure that they're subtracting the responsibilities from their own, plates, to make sure that the girls are married off to go and start their own families, but also to lessen the burden on themselves, because it's a burden to care really for 10 children, if you see what I mean. So yeah, so there are a lot of early marriages in Malawi, and of course that also translates to teen motherhood or young motherhood. So that's one of the greatest problems that we as Yamba Malawi, we are working to address. And those are the kinds of mothers that Yamba Malawi focuses its energies to sort of reach out to, because we do understand that the age and other factors, makes them more vulnerable and needing and requiring more support than all other women. We do know that women in the rural areas, all of them, if I may say, they need support. But when you look at young mothers, they do need more support because of their age. They lack the skills and knowledge on how to care for the children, but they also lack the capacity to do that. Because, for instance, there is a household that we've been working with in our area in Tie Kongoni. We found this lady. She was married off at age 12. And at the age 12, she was just a child. And she goes to start her own family, but she doesn't know how to put food on her table. So the husband, on the other hand, he's doing some little bit of piecework and other, small income generating activities, but does not bring the money home. Instead, he just addresses his needs, going out there to buy beer, to buy his own things, but also sometimes to go and socialize with other women. So this young woman or young lady, we are calling her young woman, but practically it's just a girl getting married at that age, really. So she doesn't know what to do. And then it has effects. Her child becomes malnourished. By the time that Yamba Malawi was engaging the household, the child was very malnourished. And even herself, she didn't really look strong and healthy at the point of engagement. But Yamba Malawi works with other government departments like the Ministry of Health. So they helped us to sort of work with this young woman, young mother with her baby to make sure that she is supported. The first support we provided, we made sure that we provided the income support immediately. For 12 months, we provided her with a stipend, money that provided her, enabled her to buy food and other supplies for her child. But also she entered a program where we teach them on how to, to prepare nutritious meals for children using the locally available, foods that are there in the village. But also we teach them on how to, do business. How do they do business? How do they plan? How do they do a budget and all things? But apart from that, we also support them with financial literacy skills, because we do know that we are addressing the needs of children under 5 or at the age of 0 to 8 in this framework. However, their needs are going to be long-term. For a child to go, and become all throughout from the 0 to 17th age, they must, their needs must be addressed. So we encourage the household to make savings. How do they make savings? Because in our country, there are fewer households that do understand and know the importance of savings. So Yamba Malawi comes in with financial education. We teach them, we help them understand and appreciate the importance of making savings. They mobilize themselves, the women mobilize themselves and begin to save money, but also to make sure that they do understand the principles of future, looking at the issues futuristically. And especially women, they're the ones who are excluded. If you read the reports, there are financial studies that have been done in Malawi by other development partners that have also indicated that a lot of women are outside, they are excluded financially in Malawi. So that in itself is one way that we are also trying to address as Yamba Malawi, to make sure that we are enhancing financial inclusion among the women, especially the rural and excluded communities already. So that's what we are doing. So this lady, apart from the work that we did with her in terms of like the financial literacy and stuff, but we also support them in other knowledge as well. We use integrated household farming, where we encourage them to have backyard gardens. And through the backyard gardens, they also plant, vegetables. They also rear, small livestock to enhance the nutrition of the household. This lady in her backyard garden, she managed to grow vegetables in excess and chickens in excess, to the point that she was also selling the excess. She was also generating extra income out of the backyard garden, but also the chickens that she was rearing. The beautiful part of the story is that this lady, when we were engaging her, she was very timid. She didn't, she looked tired, and half the time she didn't really want, she felt like it just appeared like she didn't want to respond to our questions. But if you found her today, among her peers, you'd find her very expressive, very, engaging, more engaging, to the point that she has engaged her neighbors. Her neighbors now have adopted some of the some of the skills that we have trained them in, like for instance, the backyard gardens. We also trained the households to have proper toilets because of the water and sanitation aspect of the program. We have seen how the households around her have now dish racks, they have toilets, they have pit latrines, they have rubbish pits, clothesline, where they have practicing very good hygiene practices as well. So that is something that we see that it's a very good impact. In Malawi, women support a lot, they support each other. So that's why when you support one woman, surely the impact also trickles down in one way or the other. It trickles down to much more women than just the woman that you have targeted.
Absolutely. So we have seen this consistently with a lot of our grantee partners, right? That the interventions in any community is always holistic. It involves the whole family. It talks about food security, about the kitchen gardens, the child's malnutrition, and mother's financial literacy, building businesses, etc. So that is what you have to do for poverty alleviation. So where does Yamba Malawi see itself or herself in the future? Where is Yamba Malawi planning to go?
The future for us is getting more and more children, because right now I can tell you that poverty, child poverty in Malawi is high. The statistics show that 67% of the children are multidimensionally poor. That speaks a lot of issues. If you talk about multidimensionality of the poverty, we are talking about people who are like living in very poor housing, but also they have no access to proper meals. Even when they have access to the meals, it's not nutritious, but also clothing is not really decent, but they also cannot go to school for one or many reasons. So those are the kinds of children that we would like to reach to. We had put up a strategic goal for ourselves that by 2023, we were going to reach 100,000 children, and we are on the right path, I must say, with partners like Together Women Rise. We've seen that there are a lot of possibilities that we can achieve that goal. But we also want to challenge ourselves, but also ensuring that we are addressing a greater need on the ground. We want to cover more areas, more districts in Malawi. But even in the districts where we are, we are now in 2 districts out of the 28 districts. Even in the district that we are in, we want to make sure that there's saturation of our programming, because poverty is a disease, and it's chronic, and it's deep-rooted. To deal with it, you have to saturate the area with whatever intervention you have. In this case, the poverty graduation model, you really need to make sure that the treatment is intensified for you to really properly treat it, rather than just sprinkle the effort, because that way it gets absorbed and it's lost in between. So that's what we would like to have, to double it, treble it, and also make sure that we are reaching the most of excluded communities. There are a lot of excluded communities in Malawi because of a lot of reasons. Some of them geographic. They're mountainous, the roads are not good because the infrastructure in Malawi is poor, access to the communities is poor. Some of the communities are just cut off from a lot of things. So we would like to get the children in those communities because they are more vulnerable, but also that's where the greatest need is. So we would like to make sure that we are covering a lot of children, but women as well, because as I said, you remember me mentioning that women and children are joined by the hip. If we can get more women in the program, because it's really, really helping a lot of women. Talk about self-confidence building. Now we've seen how women can rise up and even talk about a lot of things, including just chatting, just expressing themselves, even dealing with gender-based violence issues. Right now, our program has enabled the women to talk about the violence that they are experiencing, because before, there were a lot of abuse that was happening, and it went unreported because many women were afraid to speak. So we would like to get more women in the program for us to address, of course, their economic aspect of their life, but also just the social aspect of their life, to make sure that they're living happy, but also health lives, which in turn also impacts on the children that are in their households. In Malawi, women, and I think it's a worldwide issue, women are the ones caring for the children, especially the target group that we are focusing on, 0 to 8. Those ones are very highly dependent on the women, and the women are the ones who are mainly providing the support. We are not saying men should not are not in the picture. We do work with the men actually in the background, but our primary focus is the women, because we do know that the women are the ones who are always ever sacrificial when it comes to the needs of their children. They are always present, they are always available to make sure that their children have eaten, have gone to school, are happy. You can find a mother even singing to their babies, like in Malawi, traditionally, we sing for, you see that there is that connection between the women and the children.
Absolutely. So, Gertrude, thank you so much for giving us such a wonderful picture of the context in which women and girls live in Malawi. You know, sometimes we developmental professionals and funders, we think like, okay, you know, if the government builds the schools, the girls will come. But families have to make choices. families have to think, where is it best to invest in the girl? Send her to school, enrich her life, or get her married and secure her financial future. So I have very little time left. So what would you say about investing in education for girls? I mean, there's so many things, parents have to make choices. What is your last thought about that?
Yeah, of course, we really need to continue championing girls' education, but we also have to make sure that the narrative is well packaged, because the understanding or the common messaging that has been running around is that, oh, you need to get the girls to school, they must get an education, they will become lawyers, they will become engineers, they will become what. So that in itself isolates other people. You talk about 80% of the communities living in rural Malawi, and the smaller percentage living in town, and there's no jobs like there's struggle for employment even in the towns and cities. Now, if you want to talk about the benefit of education, especially girls' education, you really need to broaden up the benefit base, where you talk about why is it that you have to educate Gertrude as a girl child for her to be knowledgeable, for her to understand the world around her, for her to engage meaningfully and effectively in the national agenda issues. Those are the things that we really sometimes miss out when we are packaging our messaging around girls' education. So we really need to advance that philosophy to make sure that everyone identifies with that, the importance of girls' education. Because if you just say, get education, become a nurse, become a doctor, they will say, okay, but somebody got an education, but they're still in the village, they don't have a job. But that's not the importance of education. The importance of education can also enhance your creativity, your innovation. You can create opportunities for yourself. You can even engage using digital, the technology, to sort of create other opportunities where you are, even in the village. As long as you get an education and you know how to navigate in the landscape, you are able to sort of deal with so many things and create opportunities for yourself. Definitely, it's not easy to propagate these messages. As Yamba Malawi, that's where we have included the indigenous knowledge aspect to make sure that the traditional, the informal education systems are also aligning very well with the formal education systems, that they must together work together, not against each other. So that's why we are wanting to work with them, but also understanding the context where we are working in, the behavioral issues. As Yamba Malawi, we are engaging other partners like Busara. Busara is a behavioral change research institution, which is going to help us understand the women and the child issues and poverty issues, which in the whole scenario helps us to design more effective programs that are not only just preaching the gospel of girls' education equal to employment, but it can also open up more opportunities for the women in wherever they are.
Absolutely. So I think everybody needs to do their part. Governments, larger funders, to build the infrastructure you're talking about, get the broadband out into the rural areas, build the bridges and the roads that help this communication and economic development so that young girls can realize their potential. And we thank you, Yamba Malawi, for all the work that you're doing in your communities. We wish you the very best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.